Hi, I'm Kate Carvelis, and welcome to the first episode of Dissection News. Each week, I sit down with a different teacher and work with them to understand the importance of the headlines, as well as making the knowledge understandable to us. This week, I sat with Mr. Grunlow, Gray's North's World History and AP European History teacher on the Brexit vote. So, Mr. Grunlow, what is the EU? Because that's the base of the issues of Brexit, because England wants to leave the EU.
The European Union is a collection of 28 nations in Europe that has grown from 6 basically since 1948 to 28 as of, 4 or 5 years ago when Croatia joined. And it's just a collection of European states that works together to promote peace, promote human rights. They create free trade, and together that collection of nations has formed the largest economy in the world. One of the main reasons why they did it was because the 20th century was a very destructive century for Europe following World War I and World War II. And they thought the best solution is to come up with something that would tie the countries together so close economically that war was never going to be an option. And as a result, for the most part, continental Europe has remained peaceful from the 1950s on, even to the modern day, in large part due to the European Union.
So why does the European Union matter to the United States, but also to us as teenagers?
Okay, that's a tricky question. Teenagers, that's a really tricky question. But in terms of the United States, we have the single largest economy in the world. The European Union, as I mentioned earlier, has 28 countries that form the largest economy when they're collectively working together. So as the largest economy in the world, the United States is obviously going to be affected by any market that's that size. So if Britain were to withdraw from the European Union, or the European Union were eventually to dissolve, that will have some sort of effect on the United States. It's a good question. Is it help or does it hurt? It's just the uncertainty, the unknown that we don't really know. But we would know no matter what happens with the European Union, there would be some effect to the United States.
So if there is an uncertainty around it, why would England want to leave it then?
Britain is one of the most unique countries in the European Union because they've always kind of towed the line, so to say, if they've actually wanted to be in the European Union. When the European Union was formed in 1948, Britain was not willing to join it. It just remained 6 Western European countries: West Germany, France, Italy, Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg. And Britain chose to remain more like connected to the United States following World War II. So they've always kind of been on the outside looking in. And it's one of those situations like we're in AP Euro, we would talk about how Britain kind of wants the best of both sides, both worlds, or in this case, they want the best of like all 3 worlds because they want to trade with European Union countries. They want to trade with the former Commonwealth countries, and they want to trade with the United States. So it's kind of like when they do join in the 70s, they join, but they're not as fully committed as every other country in the European Union because they have certain trade rights and agreements that allows them to have special privileges because after all, they are Britain. So the other European countries want them in, but it's always come with like special privileges. And a lot of that is because they're not willing to sacrifice their special relationship with the United States or their Commonwealth nations. So ever since they've joined, it's always kind of been, is this something we really want to do? And to what extent do we actually want to do it? The other thing that's kind of hurt the situation for Britain is starting, 7 or 8 years ago, when a lot of these European Union countries were struggling financially, and they were starting to get bailed out by Britain and Germany and France. So there's a lot of pushback amongst the British population. Why are we using British tax money to help bail out like Greece and Italy and financially aid Spain and Portugal and things like that? So with the rise of populism, which we obviously see in the United States, you see it in Italy, you see it in Germany, you see it in France, you've seen it in Britain. There's just more of this, let's put our country first, whether it be, America first or Britain first or France first. It's just something that's more relevant in the world. And as a result of that, they've decided to leave the European Union.
So what exactly is the Brexit vote?
Okay, so Brexit is something that started in June of 2016. there was pushback to Britain, as I just discussed, in Britain with people not wanting to be in the EU. So the prime minister at the time, David Cameron, said, okay, if this is what you want, let's vote on it. I mean, let's put democracy to work. So he offered a referendum. Do we want to remain in the European Union? It was June of 2016, and everyone assumed Britain was going to vote. They wanted to remain. But it was a huge shock when 52% of the people voted to actually leave the European Union, which David Cameron basically, I think within 24 hours, resigned from prime minister with the idea that, okay, this is what you want. This is not what I want. So moving in that direction, you're going to have to find yourself a different leader. And like I kind of said at the beginning, it's more just the uncertainty. Could Britain be better off without it? Possibly. Could it be far worse off? Possibly. So, I mean, anytime you have something that's that financially invested to other countries, there's just a huge degree of uncertainty, and it's people are panicking. And now, because you voted for this 3 years ago, but now it's getting to the point where, oh my God, it's almost that time where we have to actually make a decision, because the European Union also said, like, October 31st is the deadline. We refuse to negotiate with you from that point on. At some point, the two sides have to move on from each other. This can't be a 4, 5, 6 year ordeal where they're both jockeying for stronger positions with like trade agreements and stuff like that.
So in their negotiations, like, were they discussing like economics? So to summarize, the Brexit vote is a vote that England took to leave the EU, which is what binds most of Europe together economically, so the countries cannot go into war together. England wants to leave the European Union because they don't want other countries to rely on them. England and the EU have until October 31st to create a post-Brexit trade deal. As of October 16th, the Prime Minister believes that they too will be able to come up with a post-Brexit trade deal for the 2-day Brexit summit that begins on Thursday, October 17th. This podcast is for the students. I want to know what you think as well as what you want to see covered. Thank you to GNHS TV for making this podcast possible.